Good afternoon, everybody. This morning I have advised the Governor-General to accept Michael Wood's resignation as a Minister. Yesterday I was alerted to additional shareholdings Michael held in the J.M. Ferry Family Trust, of which he is both a trustee and a beneficiary. These new shareholdings raise significant concerns around Michael not identifying and managing potential conflicts of interest. In particular, the Trust holds shares in Chorus, Spark and the National Australia Bank. As Minister of Immigration, Michael made the decision to include telecommunications technicians on the immigration green list. This followed representations from the telecommunications industry, including Chorus, seeking those changes to the green list. Michael also has a shareholding in the National Australia Bank, the parent company of the Bank of New Zealand. That was not disclosed in any of the conversations Cabinet had around a market study into banking or other relevant recent Cabinet conversations. Despite repeated requests from the Cabinet Office and myself for Michael to manage his shareholdings, he's repeatedly failed to identify, disclose and appropriately manage conflicts of interest. When I stood Michael down as the Minister of Transport, I asked him if there was any other relevant information I should know about, and he indicated there was not. It's become evident, therefore, that not adequately managing his airport shares was not an isolated incident, and it was therefore not appropriate for Michael to continue as a Minister. I've also formed the view that the system that we have in New Zealand for managing potential conflicts of interest amongst Cabinet Ministers also needs to change. When I learned that Michael had failed to sell his Auckland Airport shares despite 12 requests from the Cabinet Office to do so, I asked the Cabinet Secretary to provide advice on practical steps that could be taken to ensure that such a situation is not repeated again. As a result, I've agreed to the following 5 changes to tighten up the disclosure regime for ministers. First, Cabinet Office will move to quarterly reporting of conflicts of interest directly to the Prime Minister. Currently, Prime Ministers are only advised of new interests as part of the annual review or on an ad hoc basis if a particular issue arises. Second, there will be an escalation process if a Minister is not engaging fully with the conflict of interest process or following the advice of the Cabinet Office. Cabinet Office will now escalate the matter rapidly and directly to me to avoid a situation where a Minister can repeatedly ignore their guidance. Third, there will now be in-person annual reviews with each Minister to discuss their conflicts. At the moment, the annual review of Ministers is conducted by way of a letter at the end of the financial year. An in-person meeting will ensure that any issues can be more directly addressed and resolved. Fourth, each Minister will be asked to nominate a dedicated person in their office to support them with the conflict of interest process. That means that there will be another person in their office aware of any conflicts that they may have, who can act as a second pair of eyes to assist them in the appropriate management of those conflicts. And fifth, conflict disclosures will become a standing item at the start of each Cabinet or Cabinet Committee meeting. The Institute of Directors recommends maintaining an interests register as a standing board meeting agenda item, but that has not been past or current practice for Cabinet or Cabinet Committee meetings. One additional thing, I've also sought advice on a full restrictions regime on shareholdings for ministers. In Australia, the Code of Conduct for Ministers requires that they divest themselves of investments or other interests in any private or public business or company. That is, other than a public superannuation fund or publicly listed managed funds or trust arrangements where the Minister has no visibility or control over the decision-making. Adopting this approach would be a significant change to the New Zealand position, and it does require further advice and consultation. But it is my view that it's appropriate to take this step. New Zealanders expect and deserve very high standards from their ministers. While I do not believe that Michael Wood has acted with any intent of personal gain, his actions have let himself and the government down. He is a talented and hard-working minister. However, he has shown a serious lapse of judgment and has taken the appropriate action by resigning. I'll today advise the Governor-General to reallocate his portfolios to senior ministers. Carmel Sepuloni will become the Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety and the Minister for Auckland. Andrew Little will become the Minister for Immigration. David Parker will become the Minister for Transport, and Kiri Allen will become the Associate Minister of Finance. Like many others, I found this episode deeply frustrating. While I've only been in this job for about 5 months, I've taken a number of steps to stop the kinds of behaviour that have not met acceptable standards. Minister, for whom it is an honour to have such a role, need to ensure they manage their affairs to the highest standards. These have been unnecessary distractions from the firm focus that I want to bring as Prime Minister to delivering on the issues that are most important to New Zealanders.